Okay, got my controller here, and also fully powered up, including buddy forms of my double health, and on top of that stuff though, Morpher sword upgrade, and on top of that, the forms of the attack boost as well, so we can able to prepare for the ultimate test. Hey, what's up ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Maxi here once again, and I am back for yet again for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos as always. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Kirby and the Forgotten Land for the Nintendo Switch. So, last time we have shown you guys the forms of some of these mini games that you can play, and on top of all that stuff though, we did manage to able to conclude the rest of the forms of the Treasure Road segments. So as a result though, yeah, we pretty much accomplished that. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we'll present you not only the longest video yet, but also about the fact the matter is though, is the fact that this will be the finale in terms of Kirby and the Forgotten Land. And to begin with, for this video, is the fact that we're about to be able to hit on to the final cup in terms of the forms of, wow, Kirby and the Forgotten Land Coliseum. So in this case, we're about to take on the Ultimate Cup Z. In this case, the equivalent to the True Arena from the past Kirby games. So, to be expected for the most part, we can able to actually face off against with the tougher variations of certain bosses, although mind you, there's only 12 battles, just like the forms of how it does it on the Ultimate Cup. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get to it with the Ultimate Cup Z. So, yeah, and he's probably gonna tell us something that's very important, because the Ultimate Cup Z is by far the hardest aspect of the game. However though, if you somehow manage to able to actually get some of these items equipped, to be more specifically with the life bottle upgrades and stuff like that, along with the forms of the actual attack boost, along with the forms of the fully upgraded Morpher sword upgrades for your copy ability, you should probably do this just fine. So basically, it plays out very much like the forms of how it does in the Ultimate Cup, except now we're going to be able to have a rematch against with the forms of the Phantom counterparts of certain boss fights as we already fight against ever since in Isolated Isles for Go Dreams. However though, that we might able to actually come across into two other bosses that we've never actually fought against before, but relatively speaking though, we'll be able to try our best if we manage to able to try to do this without any getting any single mistakes here, especially notable about the fact that we can hopefully try to able to guarantee to do this. So, yeah, for the most part though, I've basically just managed to able to kick you know, Phantom Chlorines, but no problem. And as a result of that kind of stuff though, much like the forms of the True Arena in past Kirby games, that the Maximum Tomatoes has now been replaced as in the actual mini tomatoes, that it does manage to able to give you a little amount of health. But honestly, that with the forms of Morpho sword ability equipped, then you should probably be able to actually regenerate the health a little bit easily. So, if you remember from the likes of the forms of one of those Treasure Road segments. So, yeah, a few things we want to explain for this point today, and that is the fact that today's day is of course the 26th of May today, in this case in 2022 today. So, I get the strong sense of feeling that we've almost nearly at the end of May before we move on to the summer month, which is of course June. So as a result though, in addition to that though, is the fact that we are very looking forward until the next 2 weeks time, because obviously since that Summer Game Fest is going to be slowly approaching, so as a result though is the fact that we might able to actually finally get a chance to see the actual gameplay footage for the likes of Sonic Frontiers in journey forms of the Summer Game Fest. So yeah, let me know in the comments below for the question of the day. Are you guys about to be able to be hyped about the forms of... Oh, I do apologize for that particular capture card has been glitched up again. But don't worry though, because obviously you can still see the actual footage just fine, despite the fact that there are some technical difficulties with the forms of that particular capture card sometimes. But I digress. So yeah, let me know in the comments below the question of the question of the day, as far as I was meant to say. That are you guys excited when it comes to the forms of June, especially noticeable with the forms of the Summer Game Fest? Despite the fact that the E3 is no longer happening, just because of the forms of how the fact that they'll save up something big during the forms of in next year in 2023. So, yeah, you probably get the idea about that. So, seriously, I can just simply just manage able to beat the likes of the forms of Phantom, Silly, Dulo very quickly, especially noticeable because, again, with attack boost and all that jazz, especially noticeable with the forms of Morpho sword ability equipped, then you should probably be able to take down certain bosses a lot easier and quicker and faster. Although I would like to do it in a harder fashion way, but I refuse to do it, mainly because it might actually take a very long time to do it. And on top of all that stuff though is the fact that I'm also able to actually able to get died a lot. So, which we're not gonna let that happen, especially noticeable because, well, pretty obvious of why about the fact the matter is though is the fact that, well, relatively speaking, it's the fact that between the forms of the true arena from the likes of in Kirby's Return to Dreamland, along with the forms of the Ultimate Cup Z in this game, I found those particular boss battles like these, especially noticeable during the forms of that particular run, is actually very easy when you get the hang of it though. Although, there is that one particular feature that I suppose I forgot to mention about. That is the fact that if you somehow died during the course of the forms of the Ultimate Cup or the Ultimate Cup Z, apparently though, unlike in other games in the series, that basically though is the fact that you only have one attempt in order able to make your way through. Well, in here though is the fact that if you somehow managed able to get enough star coins, if you somehow managed to did anyway, is the fact that this might be actually be the only Kirby game to able to allow you to able to continue where you left off, assuming if you're trying to able to spend star coins. So yeah, that might be something worth mentioning though, especially noticeable I've saw a glimpse of it for certain other playthroughs of the game, so relatively speaking there's not much else to discuss. So, and speaking of such though, let's go ahead and deal with those mini bosses for the final time, just because, well, relatively speaking, it wasn't until whatever we get into Kirby-style allies and during at some point next year, but because obviously I'll discuss more details about that again, if I somehow managed able to go back onto Super Mario 3D All-Stars from the likes of Super Mario Sunshine will be the next game on this particular Super Mario 3D All-Stars trilogy, where it comes to the forms of the actual 3 games into one pack. So, but there we go, we did manage to take down those bosses really easily. And of course, as you can see, that we're now on to 5 more bosses left. So in this case, the next boss fight we're going to be fighting against with is the new boss fight that we actually never seen before. So yeah, what's the point of grabbing that sword, because it might be a little bit more pathetic on that part. So in this case, we have ourselves the Phantom version of Mennonite right there. So yeah, we can pretty much expect of how this is going. So in this case though, we can pretty much expect it able to kick his butt no problem. Especially noticeable with, again, with the forms of Morpho's sword upgrade and all that stuff, or specifically equipped. So we can able to actually kick his butt no problem. Assuming if we able to actually just try to able to make our sword a little bit bigger, so that way we can able to deal with extra amount of damage to certain bosses. So, well, here's something a bit different this time. That is the fact that we now need to dodge a lot of the forms of those fire rocks coming from the skies above. So, usually he just managed able to spawn it about 3 times as opposed to once this time around though. Whilst unlike the forms of how it does it on the normal Mennonite boss fights from the likes of the forms of Mennonite Cup, along with the forms of the Ultimate Cup, that basically might be pretty much easily taken down very easily. So, seems like we're almost there, folks, especially noticeable because, relatively speaking, that the next boss fight we're going to have a rematch against with is, of course, Phantom Forgo DDD, so we can able to actually easily take him down this time with the forms of course, again, Morpho sword equipped, so we can able to actually just shave his health down a lot faster than I thought it was, especially noticeable if you somehow managed able to equip your attack boost as well, so that way you can potentially try to able to make the easiest, speediest run through for the sake of the forms of this entire cup itself. Although, despite the fact that it might actually feel to be kind of lengthy in comparison to the forms of how it does it on the previous 2 cups, and especially noticeable it's kind of difficult, especially noticeable because again, these bosses are actually based off from the forms of Isolated Isles Forgo Dreams, so relatively speaking, no, there's not much else to explain, so alright, there goes that. So of course, next up it will be, of course, Forgo Leon, so we can able to actually kick his butt no problem. So I think there might be still 2 phases on this boss fight though, so we can pretty much expect of how this is going. And I believe after that, I believe we're about to be taking on the forms of Morpho Knight again. Except now, we actually got ourselves our actual Morpho sword with us this time around though. So we can hopefully we can able to kick his butt this time with the actual weapon for ourselves. So, yeah, that was essentially how this goes basically. And then after we're done with the forms of those other fights, we might able to expect that we will come across into the secret final boss in the whole entire game, which to be expected with most any other Kirby games, well, ever since and during the course of Kirby Superstar Ultra, because that game usually has the introduction into the forms of the secret boss fights. So, yeah, you pretty much expect how this turns out to be. So, anyways, let's take him down for good, and we can pretty much move on to Morpho Knight next. So obviously there's nothing we can worry about when it comes to the forms of healing items at this point right now. Although we'll save the forms of that particular last small tomato for last, until we take on the forms of the true final boss of the game, or in some cases though, the secret final boss. So yeah, we can pretty much expect of how this is gonna turn out. Especially noticeable that if you remember from the forms of if you managed able to beat the game again, to be more specifically, if you somehow managed able to complete it, you know, Isolated Isles Forgo Dreams, then if you somehow stumble across the second staff credit sequence, that you do realize about the fact that there was actually that white silhouette on that particular last point of that particular staff credit sequence, which actually features the forms of something more accurately, I would say like the equivalent to the forms of that particular final boss as we already fight against ever since in Lap Discoverer, except the fact that I get the strong sense of feeling it might actually be felt a lot more different, I guess. So, and unfortunately I got involved with that particular disorientating screen again, so because I wasn't exactly paying attention, but regardless of such though, thankfully it doesn't last for long, I guess. So, anyways, let's beat the Christ out of him, and, well, say farewell to the forms of Morpho Knight, until if we somehow manage to able to go into, like, you know, if we decide able to do Kirby-style allies in the future, like I said, until next year. So, and here we are, on to the last battle. So in this case, as you can tell, that in addition to hopefully get ourselves some even more star coins, if we somehow managed able to finish the entire cup, so we can able to expect that we can able to discover ourselves the secret final boss in the whole entire game. Oh jeez, it appears to be like the recolored variation of that particular Fito Elphalus. So in this case we have Chaos Elphalus. So in this case though, this is more specifically the harder version of the forms of the normal final boss. So, but honestly, she is by far one of the easiest final boss in my opinion. Especially noticeable if you somehow manage able to equip Morpho Sword with you. Especially noticeable with, again, double units of health. Although, to be more specifically, it is still as generally as one of the hardest bosses in the game. But I will have to say for this point is the fact that between this, along with the forms of Fito Elphalus boss fight, that these are by far the best boss fights I've ever seen in my life. Or to be more specifically, the best final boss ever in terms of the Kirby game's history. Because obviously it's a little bit different. And on top of all that stuff though is the fact that I just really love the actual, the atmosphere of this particular place. So, one thing I should probably also mention is the fact that, relatively speaking, when if you get to the final rounds, with those specific cups respectively, that it doesn't show us the time limit or anything. So because of that though, pretty much as to be expected when it comes to forms of any other like secret bosses in mind or something like that. I honestly have no idea, but that's only mainly because it's been about 2 days ago since I actually last played this, since 24th of May. So, because like I said before, ever since and during the course of in Mario Party 8, for the sake of the forms of, in one of those extra videos, that I did say about the fact that we haven't exactly completed the game yet, but exponentially that it's going to happen right now today, on the 26th of May, which that was before that time where basically that is going to be roughly about 2 weeks before we're able to actually see the actual gameplay footage of Sonic Frontiers from the likes of, yet again, from the likes of the forms of Summer Game Fest. So, okay, so I need to able to figure out which one is the real one, because as you can see, it's now divided into 5 as opposed to 3. So, as soon as we can able to actually just you know, just beat the likes of the forms of Chaos Elphalis. So hopefully we can able to stun him, so we can able to actually just to guarantee we can able to just do a lot of quick dodges every now and then if you just somehow want to able to survive this battle. Thus he moves a lot faster than he forms of how it does it on its normal form, so yeah, to be expected with most secret bosses out there, this is going to be one of the most, you know, test of patience, I guess. Especially noticeable, again, if you... Oh, jeez, did I somehow dodge those lasers? Okay, I'm perfectly cool with that. So anyways, oh, I need that sword so badly. Okay. But at least, thankfully, it doesn't deal that much damage to me, though. And I get the strong sense of feeling that, much like the forms of how it does it on the regular final boss, that we have to rotate the control stick again until we're able to actually just well, deal with this particular phase. Because the reason why I say phase, because somehow, if you think this is done, turns out we got one more phase to deal with. And that is the forms of this weird orb lurking. So in this case, though, it might be still exactly the same final boss, but to be more specifically, it's now in the orb form. So in this case, though, this is what the hardest aspect about this game comes into play. So, in this case, though... Oh, jeez! I totally forgot he was gonna do a suck-up thing, so... But at least I'm hoping we're not gonna lose our awesome, Morpher sword entirely, so, But at least it deals a half damage, so... I guess that's fine by me, I suppose. However, though, if you somehow die to this fight, well, assuming, again, if you somehow manage to get loads of star coins with you as currency, well, basically, it's the fact that, well, you have to restart the entire first phase again, or specifically the entire fight again, which also increase your time for it, so, yeah, that pretty much summarizes as such, so... Oh, jeez, I forgot about the forms of the cutter weapon right there, which I'm not gonna quit, because I'm still gonna be pretty much stuck with the forms of that particular, well, Morpho sword ability, so that way we can able to demolish its health very, very instant, so, well, despite the fact that the defense is actually a little bit higher, so, and somehow that my attack boost is now worn off, but that's okay though, because we are essentially almost done with this entire boss fight, so... But still, it feels a bit lengthy, but regardless of such though, if you manage to know what you're doing... Oh, and by the way, you have to get onto the highest level as possible, because if you stuck into the ground floor, basically you're gonna get a massive damage. So, because of that though, you have to be very quick on this part, especially noticeable because, well, if you don't make it in the nick of time, then obviously you're probably gonna get a lot of health drainage, so... Thus, it does have a lot of emphasis on that particular star projectile, so that way you can deal a ridiculous amount of damage against with this particular form, so... Oh god, I forgot about this the entire meteor shower, or anything else to be more specific, and it's a good thing we did manage to equip the life up bottle, so just in case we can able to increase our health again, so that way it'll actually helps me out throughout the entire battle, so although it can be felt a bit easier side of things, but regardless of such though, I honestly don't care, because obviously I was a little bit worried at first about the fact that I'm also able to get wrecked super easily, unlike the forms of how it does it on Kirby Superstar Ultra sometimes on the DS, because relatively speaking that the secret boss fight with Mark's soul might actually be felt a bit slightly tricky. And same applies to the forms of Kirby's Return to Dreamland, which, surprisingly enough, it did actually took me about one attempt, thanks to the forms of that particular technique. If you somehow shake the Wii Remote, if you equip the actual, the Tornado copy ability, and that way, you can easily take down the forms of Megalol Soul very easily. But, as far as the forms of other secret boss fights, as far as in comparison goes, I still haven't actually, progress onto Triple Deluxe or Planet Robobots essentially, and heck, even with the forms of Star Allies as well. So anyway, once you deal with the amount of health you can able to deal with the amount of damage to this particular Chaos Elphalis, then basically this entire Ultimate Cup Z is being completed. But before you're able to actually end off the cup there's actually just one last cinematic cutscene right there. And there you go. That pretty much, like I said before, that pretty much wraps it up for the Ultimate Cup Z. So basically what that scene involves around then is the fact that I'm pretty sure Elfeline just somehow managed able to gain its soul, I guess. Well, it's hard to explain because I haven't exactly paid attention to it whatsoever. But usually I did manage to accomplish that entire cup within 10 minutes and 32 seconds. So, not that bad of a run. Although, to be more specifically, I know it's kind of like an easy mode of any sort. But regardless of such though, I honestly don't care. Because honestly, I just prefer just trying to able to like... Well, thankfully, the progression has been increased if you somehow manage to did this way. And also, we can actually get ourselves Chaos Elphalis figurine right here, if you somehow manage to complete the Ultimate Cup Z for the first time. And on top of all that stuff though, 2,500 when it comes to the forms of those star coins, as well as 3 rare stones. And on top of all that stuff though, you get yourselves the Commentated Waddle Dee, and this only happens if you somehow manage able to complete all 3 of those cups in a Colosseum, so... That's something worth noting for, and of course there is something in there, specifically in Kirby's house, which in this case we actually got ourselves a new photo that is inside there, and of course it tells us something related to the 100% completion, which it could be something more related to about the fact that, well, generally speaking, the game is not over yet, because I'm pretty sure we're now on to 98% done. So in this case though, is the fact that as you can see, we actually stumbled across the trader, Waddle Dee right here, which basically, remember what these specific rare stones that we actually getting through? Well, because basically since that we are now done with the forms of that particular copy ability upgrades, so in this case we can now able to actually get some of those figurines, assuming if you managed able to get one of those rare stones. And because of that though, if you talk to Trader Waddle Dee right here, that way it can actually give you a new figurine if you somehow manage to able to get one of those rare stones and then decide to give away and stuff like that. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, it might be pretty helpful though, especially noticeable if you somehow missing certain figurines and all that stuff though throughout the game. Well, basically, for example, if you have a lot of duplicates of the exact same figurines and all that stuff though, well, basically, luckily for you, there was actually the forms of the trader Waddle Dee right there, so just in case you can able to hopefully guarantee you might able to get yourselves the actual a new figurine. So relatively speaking, that'll be the greatest way if you managed able to do this way. So, and if you hit into the forms of the Kirby's house, as you can see, we actually stumbled across those picture frames, but also there's actually a book which actually shows us the past Kirby's adventures, based off from the Nintendo Switch, 3DS, and only one SSS on the Wii U. So in this case we have Kirby Star Allies, Kirby Fighters 2, Super Kirby Clash, along with Kirby Triple Deluxe, along with the forms of DDD's Drum Dash Deluxe, and especially noticeable with Kirby Fighters Deluxe, as well as Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, although in Europe it calls it Kirby and the Rainbow Paintbrush, as well as the forms of everyone else's fan favorite game, Kirby Planet Robobot, Team Kirby Clash Deluxe, as well as Kirby's Blowout Blast, and Kirby Battle Royale, and finally Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn. So, yeah, that seems a pretty cool touch, especially noticeable it's actually like a throwback to, like, I don't know, like good old memories, I guess, despite with the forms of how the fact that, well, we only have one game on the Wii U, which is, of course, Kirby and the Rainbow Paintbrush, like I said. Now, as a result of that kind of stuff, though, is the fact that, relatively speaking, there's not much else I can say about that particular book. Although, you can't actually look up on it, though, on the forms of eShop apps or anything else to be more specific. So, it's a bit weird, though, honestly. So, anyway, so the next thing we'll show off is the forms of the cafe spot, which basically, though, is the fact that, assuming if you're able to actually have quite a few star coins to be more specific, and that way you can able to actually buy all sorts of food there, such as for instance with the forms of Cottonmouth Cake, along with the forms of, well, specifically Maximum Tomato, alongside with the forms of the soda, and heck, even with the forms of the Kirby Burger, as you can see. So relatively speaking, now for I've seen those images right there, for those specific 2 foods in mind, those look very, very absolute delicious right there. Especially noticeable, I really love how the fact that on the top portion of the bun, does most able to contain Kirby's face on it, which is actually a pretty cool touch in my opinion. Especially noticeable about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, you can able to actually just well, assuming if you either decide to able to regenerate your health in a cafe spot, or you can able to actually take it on a go, if you somehow manage able to have some bit of struggle moments when it comes to dealing with boss fights or anything else to be more specific. So that'll be the good way if you decide able to actually just to, well, relatively speaking, if you decide able to pick up more health and all the other jazz. So the most expensive one out of them all though is definitely the maximum tomato for sure. Mainly because obviously it generates your full health. So understandably so. Especially noticeable about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, that like I said, that if you're having a hard time with certain levels or certain boss fights, then this is a good place you can able to actually just get stopped by. So, yeah, that's basically how this goes with the cafe spot. So, yeah, but that being said though, although before we're able to move on to the last few extras, aside from the fact that I need to grind for more of those specific stuff in mind, that basically, let's go and have some fun with the forms of those gacha machines. So, I'm pretty sure that we haven't exactly got all of them from the likes of the Volume 1 lineup. But, relatively speaking though, is the fact that, well, it might actually took me some time if I was decided able to actually go after these things. Which again, just like in the forms of in Kirby Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot, and heck, even with Star Allies, that those specific stuff are randomized. So, it might actually took me some time, especially noticeable about the fact that, well, there's a lot of emphasis on grinding, especially noticeable about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, that, you know, with Volume 1, it only cost about 10 coins, and then I believe Volume 2 cost about 20, and Volume 3 cost about 50, and finally Volume 4 cost about 100, so pretty expensive on the side of things. Oh, as far as the forms of some figurines goes, that when it comes to the forms of both Volume 1 and Volume 4, respectively, when it comes to the forms of those gacha machines, you might not necessarily get all of the figurines in mind, because as far as I'm aware, some of those figurines are actually being locked behind by the forms of specific requirements. Now you notice about the fact that we've already got some of those specific figurines that it does contain a crown icon, which is actually represents that you actually accomplish that specific objective if you somehow manage to able to accomplish certain things like this, which I'll show this to you later, because for now I'm just gonna have some fun spending on the forms of some more star coins for able to actually get more figurines here and there. So just in case, I'll show you guys of how far I've got when it comes to able to getting every single figurines. But if I don't get them all during that time, then that's okay, because I'm also able to cut off screen and able to actually decide able to farm some more of those star coins in particular. I think the best strategy I can think of when it comes to likely getting more star coins, or some cases rare stones, if you're somehow missing some of those figurines, then basically the best recommendation I think for me though is definitely by the forms of going into Meta Knight Cup in the fastest time if possible, assuming if you manage able to equip Morpho Sword ability. So we can able to actually expect that that'll be the easiest way to do this, because either way though, that makes the entire run for the Meta Knight Cup a lot faster than attempted. So, oh god, that's a little bit creepy, don't you think? Well, mind you though, because that's the reason why, that much like the forms of how it does it on any other Kirby games every now and then, ever since in you know, Kirby's Return to Dreamland and all that jazz, that basically every single Kirby games always contain Peggy 7, or in some cases though, yeah, that's pretty much as far as I can say. The only couple of game exceptions, which are Kirby's Epic Yarn, aka Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn on the 3DS version. So because of that though, because usually those two versions of the game are usually Peggy 3, because of all that cutie art style. So yeah, because, gee, no wonder why, of certain Nintendo Switch games every now and then, that not only contains Peggy 7 on certain games, but also contains, like, violence and fear, which I have no idea why they somehow still do, ever since in Super Mario Odyssey and all that jazz. So, but it doesn't bother me too much, though, because those games are still enjoyable, so Anyway, so we got ourselves the a piece of Leon's soul. So yeah, with that particular figurine in mind. So pretty swell, I have to say. And oh, we got ourselves a creepy little figurine right there too. So yeah, that's actually pretty swell, I have to say as well. And oh, we got ourselves Silly Dulo as in phantom form. So yeah, pretty cool, huh? And we actually got ourselves Tropic Woods Phantom version. So, yeah, all in all, pretty swell, despite the fact that I'm missing a couple of figurines more. But let's just go ahead and trade some more of those rare stones to that particular trader Waddle Dee here. So that way we're able to actually get ourselves even more figurines there. Despite the fact that, well, I apologize for that particular ringtone right there. Because, well, I think my app has somehow decided able to make me play the game. So I do apologize for that background noise you'll be hearing, but that's okay though, because as you can tell, that I'm almost running out of those rare stones. But then again, the best way you can able to actually grind for not only rare stones, but also star coins as well, that basically you always have to replay through Mennonite Cup for about a multitude of times, until you're able to actually decide to grind for more of those items in particular. So yeah, before you're able to actually hit on to the forms of doing some grinding and what have you for, you know, star coins as well as some of these rare stones alike, let me quickly show you guys some of these figurine collection as far as we actually got so far. Mind you, I will do those off screen, so just in case you don't able to sift through the entirety of the luck factor to it. So, well, apart from a couple of figurine exceptions though, like as you can see, with the forms of Volume 1 as well as Volume 4, that, you know, with the fact that with certain question mark spots, did sometimes manage able to come across into the forms of those a bit of a darker box as opposed to like lighter tone for the forms of certain boxes alike. Well, basically that actually represents that if you somehow click onto that particular question mark, that usually it does manage able to say something, like to be more specific with like certain objectives alike. Well, because as a result of that kind of stuff though, I think I should probably save those until later, because for now, I'm gonna have to do a massive jump cut, and, well, 10 hours later, I somehow managed able to grind through a lot of stuff, like gun every single portions of it, including all of the figurines from the Gotcha machines, and as well as from that, I actually grind a couple of more of those rare stones, so just in case I need able to actually get some remaining figurines and all that stuff. I know it's a bit of a tedious process, but trust me when I'm saying this, is the fact that, again, the best way you can able to grind for rare stones, as well as some of these star coins, is again, going through Colosseum multiple times. Although, there's also another alternative way you can able to actually grind for more of those star coins alike, but I think, suffice to say, I think the best strategy I can think about is, of course, going into the forms of that particular Colosseum, like multiple run-throughs, so yeah, that's basically about it. So, yeah, because as a result though, that we already got quite a few figurines left, like some of them from Volume 3, and as well as some of them from Volume 4, and we already got quite a few left from the likes of in Volume 1. So, and if you couldn't tell already, for those of you who do not know already, this is our, I'm actually going to be using my different file this time. Because the only reason being for this is because I could not afford able to actually do this on file 2, so just in case that I'll be using my main primarily file from now on. So that'll be my pro tip when it comes to the forms of trying to show you guys everything. So as you can see, we got that another figurine. If you talk to this particular Usher Waddle Dee right here, if you go into that particular theater building, and basically the theater building room, it obviously contains cinematic cutscenes. If you decide able to watch those cinematic cutscenes again, if you decide able to watch those again. So relatively speaking, there's nothing else to say about this. It's basically like the equivalent to theater mode from the past Kirby games, basically, including staff credits, as well as the forms of certain cinematic scenes from the likes of the forms of Isolated Isles, Forgo Dreams, and all that jazz, including the forms of the secret ending, along with the forms of other bits here and there as well. So yeah, I guess that's that. So, yeah, with that being said though, let's go ahead and talk to this another Waddle Dee, but this time with, Wise Waddle Dee, which obviously if you talk to him quite enough times, it actually tells you specific facts, like who is in the lead for certain portions, and especially notable, that is how that this game actually features the Nintendo Switch Online membership services requirement. So, in some cases though, it tells you specific details like best copy abilities you can able to use, as well as the forms of the best results in certain minigames, as well as the forms of the best times in a Coliseum. And if you talk to him well enough, if he managed able to running out of conversations and all that stuff, you get yourself another figurine, which is actually based off on the forms of, what else? Wise Waddle Dee and stuff like that. And on top of all that stuff though, I can assure to you that since we actually got a little amount of star coins, so I think we should go ahead and purchase quite a few of those specific amount of food there. So in this case though, I think there's going to be another one of those figurines that we need able to actually purchase about 10 of those specific items in the forms of that particular cafe spot, at least if I recall that correctly. And yeah, we're going to have to able to grind a lot of star coins, by the way, so just in case you would able to actually just to try out more food here and there. So yeah, the pretty much of how this is going to turn out to be when it comes to everything else to be more specific. So again, it's a bit time consuming, but regardless of such though, assuming if you manage to able to grind for more star coins like I said, then you should be able to actually feel right to home about when it comes to likely just to get not only the one of those figurines and all that stuff, but also just trying to able to actually just to, you know, keep on regenerating your health. Well, despite the fact that I have no idea what I was clearly saying for this point right now, because aside from all that stuff though, I think that's as far as I can say for this point, guys. Especially noticeable about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, I'm still usually on 98% done. So relatively speaking though, that we can definitely guarantee that we were able to actually just do... Well, originally, I was expecting to try to show you guys some of these secrets, to be more specifically based off from, Howard. But, I can probably only show you guys one of them, but that's the only mainly thingly because of how the fact that, well, it's just the fact that, well, some people already done it, especially noticeable. I'll put in the links in the description below, so just in case you can able to actually see all of the Howl, secrets when it comes to the forms of certain, other secrets in mind for the majority of Kirby and the Forgotten Land. So, because obviously guys, is the fact that I was going to show you guys by myself, but unfortunately though, due to the forms of time constraints and all that stuff, I don't think I can probably do that. Especially noticeable that about that time until tomorrow and onwards, that not only do I need to head back onto Mario Party 8 for the sake of the forms of the last 3 extras to show off, but also with the forms of, you know, Ray, Mighty, and especially noticeable with Pac-Man, are pretty much about to be heading back onto The Simpsons Hit and Run, if they got enough time to do so. So anyways, let's go ahead and spend the last few of those rare stones to trade a Waddle Dee, so just in case we can able to guarantee, yeah, if you pretty much expect right from the start though, is the fact that, yeah, this is my file number 1, because like I said before, I can't afford able to actually play through the entire game in file number 2. Just in case if you're probably wondering, just to don't get confused by this point. So yeah, because as you can see, that technically you already seen the forms of those figurines before, but that was actually based off from file 2. So in this case though, like I said before, this is file number 1 we're playing right now. So just in case I don't want to confuse you guys. So anyway, so we got ourselves Morphin Knight right here. So we can pretty much expect of how we are getting some progressioning for certain figurines at this point. So yeah, it looks like that we almost pretty much done for the sake of the forms of Volume 4 lineup for certain figurines and all that stuff. So yeah, everything else also comes in finally together and all that stuff though, and I get the feeling we've only got one more figurine from Volume 4 lineup, so that way we don't need to worry about the forms of the stupid random gotcha moments here and there. So in this case, we actually got Morphin Knight Sword, so awesome, swell stuff. And assuming you've managed able to actually got every single figurines at this point right now, well, aside from the fact that, well, there is something missing in particular, isn't there? Well, aside from the fact that I've already managed able to purchase quite a lot of food from the sake of the forms of the Waddle Dee Cafe bit, Oh, gee, I actually realized something. I'm running out of those star coins. So, yeah, that might actually take me some time. In fact, let me just go ahead and do some bit of a star coin hunting for the sake of the forms of trying to grind some more of those star coins in case if I want to able to purchase more food if I was trying to able to get this one last figurine right here. So, yeah, that basically explains it this much though. So yeah, let's give my final thoughts in terms of the forms of Kirby and Forgotten Land before we are able to actually do anything. I absolutely adore this game, especially notable because, like I said before so many times in the past, it's about time to able to actually finally make a jump to 3D with a Kirby game nonetheless. Like, I do enjoy with the forms of the gameplay, as well as the forms of the story, and the graphics look so really impressive, even especially noticeable this is on the Nintendo Switch. And also, really enjoyed the soundtrack as well. And the controls-wise, perfection in every single imaginable ways, although there are some, you know, issues I have with this game, although nothing much though, just a tad bit. To be more specifically with the forms of certain, collectibles, specifically with certain Waddle Dees, locked behind the forms of those specific mission objectives sometimes, that, sometimes certain missions like that can be pretty easy and stuff like that, while most of the time though, it can be impossible to beat sometimes, which I understand for the challenge, but sometimes if you're trying to able to actually go with like not able to get hit once in during certain boss battles here and there, or even some cases mini bosses every once in a while, that can get pretty frustrating at times, especially noticeable it does remind me of the forms of doing no depth, doing like the actual level like doing like 3 deaths or less ones with that particular gem from the likes of Crash Bandicoot 4, it's about time. But before we're able to actually end off this Let's Play right here, let me show you guys that one of those secrets in particular, and that's what appears to be located on the 3rd level for the sake of the forms of, well, Natural Plains world. So basically, if you go towards the very end of this particular level, that you only need to acquire Kirby car mouth ability, so that way you can able to actually discover, and at the same time you do need to acquire a ranger ability if you somehow manage to do this, because as you can tell that we've already destroyed that particular flying target from the further distance away, and that we're able to actually activate that particular block staircase, which pretty much leads us to something in particular special. So, I've no idea why I'm saying things a little bit more of the worst English I've ever said in my life. Well, mind you, because that's as far as I can honestly try to say. Although, apart from the fact that another issue I have with the game is the fact that, well, I just wish if this game were able to actually have 60 frames per second. Well, it only does it on the menus, but it doesn't bother me at all, honestly, guys. I mean, surely when it comes to the forms of this particular game, for my final thoughts of the game, I enjoyed this game. Especially noticeable, it's actually one of the best Kirby games so far, for the sake of the forms of the Nintendo Switch platform. So yeah, that's actually super impressive, all things considered. Especially noticeable, like I said, that, you know, this is in 3D and stuff like that, and hello, HAL. So, in this case though, much like in any other Kirby games, including buddy forms of Kirby's Return to Dreamland, that, yeah, that's, the HAL, secrets is actually obviously there. So in this case though, you get stuff like, tons of blocks to able to destroy with, as well as the forms of some more capsules for more figurines, but honestly guys, who cares about these anymore? Just because, well, I pretty much almost collected every single figurines as much as I can, and of course you're able to actually get some more star coins if you decide able to grind more of them, so that'll be helpful though, especially noticeable if you decide able to actually just to grind for more of those, you know what I mean, some star coins if you managed able to go for gacha machines, or in some cases though, if you go after the last figurine, like me, that I'm actually going to be going after more of those purchasable items for certain food for the actual cafe spots. So yeah, I think this is the only secret I can probably find for you guys, although then again, the link in the description down below, if you managed able to actually just to notice there might be some more secrets if somebody else already done it, so yeah, that might be something worth mentioning for that particular discussion in mind. So there we go, I think we actually got enough of those star coins as this, so hopefully we can able to head back into Waddle Dee Town for the final time for the entire Let's Play of this game. And because of that though, I think the only thing I was currently missing onto, despite the fact that this is in my actual main file, file number 1. So in this case though, let's go ahead and purchase energy drink right here, and of course the maximum tomato, so just in case we can able to actually just to guarantee that, well, we can able to actually get something that's very rewarding and stuff like that. So in this case, the final figurine in the entire game for my Let's Play department, such as right now. So in this case, we finally managed to get the final figurine right there. So in this case though, we got ourselves the Sheriff Staff Waddle Dee, and in some cases though, we've now actually completed all the figurines. And on top of that, if you completed everything, we got 100% clear congratulations image, which features every single characters, including Mennonite, and King Diddy, Bandetta Waddle Dee, and Elfeline in the actual image. So, yeah, pretty much as far as you might as well get for the sake of the forms of this entire accomplishment, I guess. So, and also I get the strong sense of feeling that, relatively speaking, that you get yourselves the final picture frame inside a Kirby's house in particular. So, in some cases though, yeah, we basically 100% everything in terms of Kirby and the Forgotten Land game. So, despite the fact that sometimes I have to switch my different file, just in case if you wanted to see, like, not so much the forms of grinding fest for, you know what I mean, got your moments and all that stuff though, because, you know, you still aren't able to actually sit through for the forms of this entirety of the luck-based factor to it. So yeah, 256 of those figurines. That's actually quite a lot, especially noticeable because, relatively speaking though, that this game has a lot of emphasis on high replayability and stuff like that, or replay value and stuff like that, which I always appreciate about that. Or maybe I'm just like, maybe this is enough. To be more specifically, like 300 Waddle Dees to collect, 300 Leon Souls to collect, and on top of all that stuff though, 256 figurines in order to get them. So that's almost roughly about 800-ish collectibles you have to get. Seems quite a lot though, but either way though, it doesn't bother me at all, despite the fact that the no damage run-throughs can be a bit of a bothersome to me. So, but regardless of such though, can I still recommend this game? Absolutely, it's fantastic in almost every way. But despite with the forms of some difficult situations, mainly due to no damage runs on certain mission objectives, it can be felt a bit cumbersome to able to go through, even especially noticeable you have to replay the exact same level design so many times on certain levels. So, oh, and finally, I suppose I should probably mention about this, is the fact that you can also just manage able to use those figurines if you couldn't tell. Like, for example, I'm actually selecting certain figurines from Volume 4, because obviously that you can able to actually place these figurines in a Kirby's house, which is pretty interesting. Although you can only hold up to 3 figurines at a time, so because of this though, as you can tell, I've managed able to place those 3 awesome figurines over there, so it makes things a lot more nicer on this display. And of course, the final thing we'll show off is the fact that if you're trying to take a nap, then obviously, oh, it just looks so cute. And also, it regenerates your health if you do that. So, thank you guys so much for watching of our Let's Play of Kirby and the Forgotten Land, because I surely really do enjoy this game, especially noticeable for enjoying this Let's Play too. Despite there's a bit of a delay from the last 2 parts in particular, because like I said before, since the very beginning of May, just because of Ray, Mighty, and Pac-Man needs to catch up on The Simpsons Hit and Run, just in case we're able to catching up on the forms of specific uploading schedules alike. So, that might be the actual why of how the fact that it actually been took so long. So, anyway, so let's go and return back to the title screen right here. And because of that though, we can probably show this one last thing before we end this Let's Play off completely. That is the fact that if we go into select your file, and basically, look at that, our file is now 100%, along with this rainbowy color effect on Kirby and all that jazz. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching about Let's Play of Kirby in the Forgotten Land. I do enjoy it, and I'm sure you guys were able to enjoy it as well, including Kirby Fan 345, So I'm sure that you're able to enjoy that Let's Play basically, so I appreciate it. So this is me, Maxi, from the likes of the Maxi Toys. Up next, in terms of the forms of the serious amount of Kirby Let's Plays we might as well do, in addition with Kirby's Suit Star Allies, I think we're also decided able to do some spin-off titles here and there as well, starting with the forms of Kirby's Pinball Land for the Game Boy, and maybe some other games in the future for the Kirby spin-off series, so just to feel like it. So I'll see you guys enjoying at some point in the next couple of days. Bye.